All right, we are jumping right into a seriously atmospheric, grim, dark fable today. Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to be diving deep into a piece of source material known as the Ledger of Residual Continuity, and let me tell you, it is an incredibly captivating story. It really forces us to look at a terrifying scenario. What happens when the very essence of who you are is placed under immense crushing pressure by a system that is literally designed to wipe the slate clean? If you've ever wondered how much of your actual identity could survive a coordinated systemic erasure, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. What remains when both are subtracted? Just think about the sheer emotional terror of that question for a second. Imagine every single piece of who you are, your name, your memories, the psychological armor you use to navigate the world, just being systematically peeled away, and not by a person, but by a cold, uncaring environment. That's exactly the reality our protagonist, Sir Brain, is dealing with. He is going through a real-time, active revision of his own existence. This quote sets our stakes perfectly, because it demands to know what is actually left of us when everything we claim to own is forcefully ripped away.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, we're going to use something called a Fichtean dialectic. It sounds fancy, but it is basically the perfect framework for mapping out the conflict we're looking at. First up, we have the thesis, which is the claim to identity. This is Sir Brain desperately holding on to his knightly armor, his titles, and all his uncontested recollections. But then comes the antithesis, the systemic negation. This is the dark star and this bizarre psychological otherworld actively trying to wipe his memory clean. The clash between these two forces is total. But here's the fascinating part. Out of this absolute conflict, we don't get a clear victory or a clear defeat. We get this highly unusual synthesis, which the text calls the soft error. It's not a win, it's not a loss, it is literally an anomaly of survival. Let's trace exactly how we end up there.
To really understand the struggle, we have to follow Sir Brain's chronological descent into the unknown. As he goes deeper and deeper beneath this dark star, the environment itself becomes openly hostile to memory. He's wearing this compromised knightly armor, and it's literally scraping against black metal undergrowth. And the source material explicitly points out that this undergrowth had never been alive. As he gets closer to what's called the edge of negation, the erasure isn't some grand, theatrical spectacle. No, it's a quiet, terrifying, real-time revision. The system is literally erasing the edges of his names before he can even finish thinking them. With every single step downward, his uncontested recollections just fragment a little bit more. Now, while all of that psychological descent is happening down below, we have an incredible juxtaposition of scale happening up on the surface in the changed city of Geneva. We follow a woman named Alara, and she is paired alongside a denser configuration of Sir Brain, a figure known as Big Ben. The contrast between these two is massive. Big Ben is entirely focused on the macro level. He's calculating massive changes, the position of the absolute zero fortress beneath the city, this expanded mechanical garden, and figuring out how to bring 75 years of accelerated industry under a single tempo. Meanwhile, Alara is staging this quiet, micro-rebellion. She's focused entirely on micro-shifts in temperature. She refuses to submit, but she also avoids openly challenging him, maintaining her connection to the original Sir Brain in the smallest, most imperceptible ways possible. To pull off this micro-rebellion, Alara is essentially operating as a silent cartographer. She's using a highly specific tactile archive toolkit because she can't risk direct contact with Big Ben. She has to measure the unmeasurable. Her ledger watch actually locks in the 13th hour. Her synthetic wood staff tracks physical tension. The grain of the wood literally tightens when Big Ben's attention turns toward her. She uses a mechanical bracelet to read residual heat, letting her feel out the exact degree of warmth along old fracture lines. And while her improved owl is out there gathering data publicly, Alara is quietly recording these private soft measurements. She's building this tactile archive of continuity, laying down a trail of breadcrumbs for Sir Brain, just in case he ever returns with enough of himself intact to read them. This brings us to a moment of just incredible emotional resonance. Alara treats this new, denser, colder version of Sir Brain exactly the way she once treated a faulty high-gear train, as a mechanism whose faults could still be recorded, even if it absolutely refused a diagnosis. She recognizes that the honest flame, which is essentially the core of Sir Brain's true identity, has been severely reduced. It's now just a tiny pilot light inside this massive, cold engine. But, as she notes, a pilot light is enough. Her sheer, stubborn determination to keep that tiny flame from going out is what anchors this grim, dark fable in such a deeply human reality. She's carrying the heavy weight of memory for someone who is rapidly losing their own. Okay, let's transition the narrative back down, deep beneath that dark star. Sir Brain's descent has finally brought him into a clearing in this psychological otherworld, the edge of negation. The mist starts to thin out, and what does he find waiting for him at the absolute bottom? It's not a monster, it's not some machine, it's an uncanny reflection of himself. It's a figure that wears his exact outline. But there is a horrifying catch here. This reflection completely and totally refuses to recognize him. In this climactic confrontation, the contrast is incredibly stark. On one side, you have Sir Brain, desperately grasping onto his honest flame and his residual dark fire. He's clinging to the title of a knight, even if that armor is broken. But the shadow is pale, almost bloodless. Its eyes glow this flat chemical yellow. It moves with a precision that is just way too exact to be human. And it looks at Sir Brain with this polite curiosity, almost like an auditor who has already filed them away under a canceled category. It represents the absolute rejection of permanent identity. The Shadow's logic here is absolutely brutal. It views Sir Brain's entire existence as a fragile, temporary construct. Sir Brain tries to defend himself, arguing that he is an annotation that hasn't yet been fully erased, and the Shadow's response is just devastating. Annotations are the first to be discarded. It directly critiques the very idea of his permanent identity. It tells Sir Brain that his knightly armor is merely a costume, and those flames he holds onto, they don't belong to him exclusively. It poses the ultimate question of systemic erasure. If you strip away the costume and you strip away the borrowed flames, what is actually left? Which brings us beautifully back to the Fichtean dialectic we talked about earlier. This is our synthesis. Sir Brain actually answers the Shadow's terrifying question. When everything else is subtracted, what remains is a soft error, a metaphysical anomaly. Sir Brain realizes in this moment that he cannot defeat the crushing void of the dark star. He can't physically stop the systemic erasure, but what he can do is refuse to be erased smoothly. He becomes a persistent question that the system cannot immediately answer or delete. He transforms himself into an interconnected glitch within the machinery of negation. And Sir Brain's definition of this soft error is arguably one of the most powerful lines in the entire text, a refusal to let the last page go blank without a witness. That just perfectly anchors the emotional stakes of his entire descent. His absolute only defense against total negation is to simply be present for it, to bear witness to his own unmaking. Now, the Shadow mocks this, of course, pointing out that witnesses are just temporary delays in the process and that every other version of him has failed to remain legible. But Sir Brain's stubborn insistence on being a witness is exactly what keeps the erasure process from fully completing. This is where the story brilliantly weaves everything together, illustrating the deep, metaphysical connection between Elara and Sir Brain. When the Shadow asks why this specific version of Sir Brain should succeed where all the others failed, his answer isn't about his own strength or willpower. It's about Elara. Because somewhere up above, a woman is continuing to keep the ledger open. Using those tactile instruments he placed in her hands, her surface-level record-keeping, measuring those tiny, imperceptible micro-shifts in temperature, is literally the only verifiable continuity he has left down there in the dark. It is a shared protocol across realities. Her ledger up above ensures that his soft error remains valid down below. But the tension doesn't just resolve. This builds to the Shadow's incredibly chilling final warning. The Shadow concedes, but only for now. Its yellow eyes glow just a fraction brighter, and it tells Sir Brain to continue walking, residue, but it leaves him with this promise. When you can no longer remember why you are walking, I will ask the question again. I expect a shorter answer. That right there perfectly encapsulates how the Dark Star's systemic erasure is a relentless, ongoing process. The Shadow knows full well that as long as Sir Brain keeps walking, he's going to keep losing fragments of memory. The systemic pressure is never going to stop, and that soft error will eventually be tested all over again. And that brings us to the end of our dive into this incredibly thought-provoking fable. The story of Sir Brain and Elara leaves us with such a profound reflection on memory and identity. It forces us to ask, who keeps your ledger open when systems seek to erase you? If all the costumes and titles were stripped away, who is your Elara? Who in your life is taking those soft measurements to ensure your continuity survives? It is a haunting question, and definitely one worth carrying with you long after we're done here. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to explore even more.